Becoming your most potent spiritual leader. Do you have a passion, curiosity, or excitement for dream work? When I was young, probably early middle school, my uncle saw something in my dreams and he encouraged me to record them. And that's when I started tracking them. In fact, I still have journals from almost every dream that I recalled all through middle school and all through high school. Plus all of these cryptic journals I created where I would expeditiously break down and analyze and try to decode the meaning behind all of the dreams. While my relationship and understanding of dream work has changed drastically and evolved over the years, my passion and my fascination has certainly remained. And using dreams to play has also remained. So this interest and passion has also seeped into my work and my friendships. I would consciously plan play dates with friends where we would see if we could meet each other in our dreams, which works, by the way. And I would find in my dreams, I'd be getting messages from friends when they need me to check in, or spirits popping in and giving me teachings that I would need in the future. In my dreams, I would often get premonitions, or maybe I would just have a dream with a friend and it was an opportunity to let them know and reconnect and just send them a little love. So I'm just curious if this sounds like you. One of my other fascinations is I love intentionally teaching people through their dreams. And in today's episode, I want to share a little bit about dream work, but actually what I want to speak of more is the concept and the topic of energetic hooks. And also it relates a lot to sort of this empath narcissist story that we hear a lot about in contemporary culture. So listen in if any of this feels interesting to you, because I started to see some things that created some epic breakthroughs. This really simple process that is brilliant and changes things on a fundamental level and will also let you open up and play in your spiritual gifts more. So I used to feel like popping in and out of other people's dreams was totally random. Like I would do it here and there, but as of late, I've been able to cultivate actually doing it intentionally and being able to pop in intentionally to people's dreams, people who are in agreement with me popping in, and deliver them a teaching or a healing. And I really love working in this way. One, because it doesn't feel like work. We're both sleeping. That's so awesome that we can do our own healing while we're asleep. And it's also because I find that the messages and the power behind them, behind these dream experiences, can really land and unlock things in a much more powerful way than it does through therapy alone, or like the mind alone, or even more than some of the really powerful ways that I teach people to use in their healing practices, right? So I was really excited the last couple of months when I started hearing reports from multiple people telling me that I was showing up in their dreams and told them, something that I was specifically intentionally working on or concentrating on or cultivating. Just as I was celebrating this accomplishment, I had a very quick reminder that being that open and working in this way means that other people can enter my dreams as well. Oh, oops, forgot about that part. So that's all fun when it's wanted, right? But when there's a belief that it's not wanted or that it's not invited and it happens, this is one of the things that causes a lot of us to just shut down our gifts, right? We start to experience something cool that we can do. And then we see the way it's like the two-way side of it. And then we're like, whoa, I don't know if I want this. And we shut it all down. And I'm interested in how we can feel safe in our gifts without repeating the pattern of taking on other people's energies or being overwhelmed. And of course, even though I'm well past most of this, right? Like I'm able to work with people on a really deep level and not take on their stuff, not get exhausted, not get sick as a result of being with them, not be afraid to go in public because I'm so sensitive now. And I teach other people how to work through this so they are also not bogged down with other people's energy or dealing with unwelcome guests. And here I am opening up this extraordinary thing, and then getting a visitor in my dreams that I did not want to be in my dreams. And so one morning, I kind of woke up and realized that he was visiting my dreams. And I was in that state where I was kind of drifting in and out of sleep, kind of working with him consciously, working with him subconsciously, waking up and processing a little bit of what was going on, and then going back to sleep. And really just being mad, mad that it happened. Like, dang it. How'd you get in here? And then I remembered how it is to say no and shut the door. And that's where there was a whole packet of information that I had to unpack from this. So that's what I'm going to share with you today. First of all, what I remembered is that we have a contract. He and I have an agreement, probably that's been going on for several lifetimes. And it's a bit of a quarrel, In fact, as I started to wake up to it more and more, I realized that we've been continuing this fight in both of our lives. It's not just me thinking about this quarrel. He is also engaging in this quarrel. And to be honest, most of it's probably happening at the subconscious level for him, I believe. I have no idea if he has any idea that this is something that we have chosen to do. I think that he might sense it a little bit, but probably would not feel safe actually acknowledging it to himself, let alone, to anybody else. So, our history is he sort of represents this like kind of classic narcissist character, right? The ultimate victim who refuses to take responsibility for himself and perpetually engages women in harmful emotional confusion. But I also know that this is part of his medicine, that it wakes up the women, and that on some level, he has gone into agreement to be this teacher, right? Which is a pretty hefty role to agree to do. Not that it's okay, not that that's an excuse to do harmful things or inflict violence, but it's part of the teaching, right? And, in this current climate where there's like a lot of the empaths are the beautiful princesses and the narcissists are the evil bad guys, I like to remind us that toxic takes two. Toxic relationships means two parties are operating out of their wounds or distortions. It's not just one. But when I started to wake up to this quarrel that we're having, I realized that I'm sort of taking responsibility for others. Like, I was like, oh yeah, we are actually in this quarrel. And I immediately went to like over responsibility for me being the one doing the thing, right? Because I know it takes two. I immediately looked at like, ooh, where am I doing the bad thing? And so one of the things I noticed is that I have a lot of my energy invested in hoping he gets better, because he is enduring a lot of suffering, and because I do genuinely care about him, and I do know that he's in pain. And I also have seen the havoc he's wreaked in some of my friends' lives. And I started to realize that I've become very protective of my friends that have encountered him. Not just those people that I know, but the prospects that he will continue to hurt others through his patterns, right? So this is where I've taken more responsibility, because I am tracking him. I'm tracking to see where he's at in his progress. This is where I've hooked into him. I have one of my energetic hooks into his system so that I can keep tracking him and see how he's doing. My hook is my own investment in his life and investment in the lives of the people that he's engaged in. Plus, he is very powerful psychically, which he probably also doesn't know or hasn't fully acknowledged on a conscious level. So we have this like little competition going. I have this subconscious war that I'm engaging in with him. So even though I know that my underlying reason for all of this is a caring effort to protect my friends and to help him find a way out, the fact that I'm even quarreling and continuing to track him, even if it's because I want him to get better, that is part of the problem that needs to stop. Tracking him is part of the fight to assert my dominance. This quarrel with him that there's a fight that needs to happen, and as long as there's a fight, then we're both going to be validating our negative patterns, right? Because he is continuing to sort of like match me on the psychic level. And again, this is very, very subtle. This is happening in very subtle ways. And we'll probably never talk about it. And I know he knows it's happening, even though he might not be fully conscious of it. If we talked about it, he'd probably deny it. But I know he knows it's happening because I can feel it. And I know that it's happening because I know when I'm really honest with myself, I know I'm engaging with it. And the fact that I'm engaging with it means that it's happening. So when he showed up in my dream, naturally I was angry. I was like, dang it, he made it in. And then I realized, of course he did. So I had to take a second look. And as long as I'm tracking what he is doing, we have this energetic connection. As long as I'm tracking this, that I still have my own investment and desire in wanting to see him get better and get healthy. My own investment in wanting to see that he is left to end the self-pain. And my own investment and also wanting him to see his own bullshit that he does to himself, right? All of this is my investment in his reality. It's not my business. It's not my business. So he's been a teacher for me in that way for a while, because every time that I find myself in his business, he manages to do the same. So when he showed up in my dream, I realized, of course he did, because I have my energy in him and vice versa. So if I want him to change, then I need to change. But I have changed and I have grown over time. So even just seeing that I'm engaging with him in this way, normally, like the past me would have completely shut down in shame around it. I would have been like, oh God, I'm psychically invading him again. And my old habit would have been to cower in shame and spend my time basically beating myself up for doing the thing, while also probably trying to hide it and pretend like it wasn't actually happening. And my new approach is to simply say, oh, I see something that I didn't see before. I see my shadow in this work. It's not even that anyone's doing anything wrong. We had an agreement to teach each other something. And now that I see it, I can end that contract and that agreement. What isn't true is my take on the story that I've been doing the thing wrong and I am, I'm to blame. Because he is also part of the story. He is also engaged in it, and he is also learning and teaching from it. So the lesson has been learned, at least for me. And once I can see that lesson, now I'm able to actually draw my energetics back. And I don't know what will happen to him because I will no longer be tracking him. And it's not my job to be tracking him anymore. Right. And so part of me wants to draw my energy back and then look to see if it worked. But that would be resetting the hook, right? So if I actually want to end this quarrel, my job is just to retract my energy and stop tracking him and seeing if it worked, or seeing what he's doing, or seeing if he has done it for me too, right? Because the other side of the story is that he is also invading me, that he's coming after me, that he's overwhelming me. And that would also be sinking the hook in deeper, because I'm now attaching to this, like the other side of the story, right? Where like on the one version is like, I'm the bad guy that's been overwhelming someone else. And the other version is I'm the victim and someone else has been overwhelming me. When the truth is we've been in an agreement with each other. And now that I see what's happening, the contract can end. And again, typically I would have gone into shame around this, but it's like knowing that this was an agreement makes me realize I can't go back to that old piece of toxicity anymore. It's like it takes two, and it's tricky because part of me wants to realize or see that I'm the one who woke up first too, right? I totally want to be like, oh, I figured it out. I figured it out first. And withdraw my hook and then make sure that he knows that I figured it out and that I won. And right, that would be the old pattern again. And of course, if I do that, I would not have actually withdrawn my hook. But what I can do is I can just drop the habit or the pattern. And the easiest way to drop it is just to actually let go of the shame around it. Because the shame is also how somebody like that keeps their hook in you, right? This is part of that empath narcissist drama where wherever you have shame, they can enter. Either through shame or through finding the thing that you're most vulnerable about, right? Finding your softest spot and then shaming you or stinging you there. Or by making you feel like you aren't safe or can't trust yourself, which also might be your most vulnerable part. So when you can drop any of those patterns, the shame, the distrust of self, or actually just the feeling of feeling unsafe, when you can drop that, then you can pull out the hook. Then the game ends and the teaching is complete. This is why I'm not a fan of cord cutting, because to me, it reinforces the belief that someone else is bad and you are not, and they're doing something to you and you're the victim. And it's just not true. What actually ends this cycle is by seeing what the teaching is. Once you see it, you can take responsibility. Then you can actually end or change the agreement, unhook your hook, or unhook their hook, or simply drop the pattern altogether, right? So it's important because when we perpetuate this idea of something has invaded me that I don't want to be there and I'm going to cut it or remove it, but I haven't actually seen what our agreement is and what my part of the agreement is, then we're bypassing, right? Then we're missing the teaching and then we're in shadow. And then likely the pattern will repeat in some way, right? So instead, we want to actually see what the teaching is, take responsibility for it, and drop the shame, right? And dropping the shame and taking the responsibility for it tends to happen right around the same time. And, there's a nuance to be able to take that responsibility without also kind of taking responsibility and taking responsibility for the whole thing instead of just your side of it, I guess should say. So if this is something that resonates with you, hop into the private Facebook group and let's look at it. And we've been working on a pretty brilliant way of facilitating this in shaman school. I've been teaching people a new way of tapping into this and being able to basically help facilitate that unhooking process. And it's making amazing results really fast. And if you'd like to learn how to end this pattern in yourself or help others end the pattern in themselves, we of course teach you how to do this in shaman school. So be sure to check out the link to get started. You can learn more about my GROW method and apply it to shaman school, and we can dive more deeply into this. Thanks for joining me today. Have you been hearing the call to expand your spiritual gifts and step into your next level of conscious leadership? If you're a coach, healer, or a spiritual leader, you can learn more about shaman school and growing your spiritual business on our website, holtonhealingarts.com, or send me a DM at Holton Healing Arts. Welcome to today's Member Query episode, where we explore questions about spiritual paths, intuitive gifts, growing a spiritual business, and shamanism. Do you have a question for us? Send us a DM at Holton Healing Arts. This question is from an Instagram follower, and the question is, I feel like I'm constantly struggling. How do I end this game of struggle? And to do that, we first of all have to acknowledge that the old system has us believe that if we lose our struggle, if that we'll actually lose our connection to others. So the best way to exit the struggle is to take a look at where in your life or in your consciousness you still have this belief that if you are not struggling, you will lose your connection with others. You will lose your connection with family or community or whatever might be important to you. Once you can look at that, then you can begin to flip it to the new system, which the new system has us experience ourselves as becoming sovereign and holding others to the same integrity that we hold ourselves to. That means when we allow ourselves to exit the struggle, when we allow ourselves to flourish, we act as a pathway or a bridge for other people to flourish as well. So we can tell our mind at least that when we are flourishing, when we allow ourselves to do it, this also helps other people flourish more too. And then everybody gets to exit the struggle game rather than getting stuck there. I want to make one more point though around this question, although the question I don't think was about this specific thing. I think it's important to note that oftentimes we can feel like we're struggling to change or make a change. And the real struggle isn't making the change. The real struggle is actually working really hard to convince others you are trying to change when in fact you are committed to staying the same. So that's a sneaky one. Make sure you pay attention to that and eventually, again, come back to the belief or what beliefs you might have around struggle and why you would still be attached to it. That's actually how you exit the game. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Leading with Spirit. If you did, please share the link for this episode with your biggest takeaway, tagging me at Holton Healing Arts. It would also support me if you subscribed and left a rating and review of the show so we can support more people living their highest purpose.